Chiron's boots clicked against the polished floors of the Aurora Palace, each step echoing in the vast corridors that stretched higher than the clouds of any human city he had ever seen. The mission had ended weeks ago, the rogue planetary faction neutralized, and humanity had won a small victory that no one outside the intelligence circles would ever hear about. Kai had expected a hero's welcome, maybe even praise, but as he walked through the main halls, all he felt was an odd mixture of tension and uncertainty. The palace was alive in ways humans could not fully understand. Walls shimmered with soft light, casting reflections that shifted as if the building itself was observing him. He had been here once before, months ago, standing at the altar in a silver suit of ceremonial armor, ready to bind himself in marriage to Princess Leora of the Valar Dominion. But then, the mission had called, and he had left, not for glory, not for cowardice, but because the lives of millions depended on it. Leaving her had been the hardest decision of his life. He had expected anger, rage, maybe even exile. But as he turned a corner, he froze. There, at the center of the largest hall he had ever seen, stood Leora, the alien princess, who had been waiting at the altar. She was tall, elegant, and far more commanding than any human ruler he had ever met. Her silver-blue skin shimmered faintly under the palace lights, and her eyes that could pierce through the bravest soul, were fixed on him. Kai swallowed hard.
I didn't expect you, he said.
His voice sounded small in the massive chamber. Leora's lips curved into the faintest smile, but there was no mockery in it. Just calm. Just observation.
You always were unpredictable, Chiron, she said softly. And it seems nothing has changed. He ran a hand through his hair, suddenly aware of how out of place he felt.
He was a soldier, a strategist, a man who could survive impossible odds on the battlefield. But here, in the heart of an alien palace, facing the woman he had left at the altar, he felt exposed.
I had a mission, he said almost defensively. Lives were at stake.
I did what I had to do. Leora stepped closer, the flowing silks of her ceremonial gown moving like liquid. She didn't touch him, didn't offer the warmth of reconciliation, yet there was no hostility either. I understand the concept of duty, she said, but abandoning a ceremony, leaving me, was bold. Even for you. Kai exhaled, tension easing slightly. Bold, that was one word for it. He had called it necessity. I didn't leave because I didn't care. I left because there was no other choice. Her eyes softened, just a fraction, and he caught the smallest glimmer of curiosity in them.
And yet here you are, she said, her voice calm, measured, almost teasing. Back in the palace as if nothing happened.
He shrugged, though it felt awkward under her gaze.
I returned because the mission is over, and because the Dominion matters.
And because I thought perhaps some things still deserve explanation. For a moment, silence stretched between them, the kind that made every footstep in the palace feel louder than it should. Kai's mind raced. How would this go?
Would she demand he leave? Would the council punish him?
Would the mission he had fought for be overshadowed by the personal choice he had made? Instead, Leora gestured toward the grand windows that looked over the cityscape of the palace world.
Sit, she said. Tell me everything. Kai blinked, taken aback.
Sit? She wanted to hear him out? Somehow, that was harder than facing an entire army. He followed her and they settled near a balcony overlooking the glowing city below. He began slowly, recounting the mission that had taken him to the rogue planets, the delicate maneuvers that prevented planetary destruction, the intelligence operations that had saved millions. Leora listened quietly, occasionally tilting her head, letting him finish each sentence without interruption. She didn't show shock, didn't gasp at the audacity of his actions. She merely observed, the faintest smile still playing at her lips. When he finished, he leaned back, exhausted from recounting events that still weighed heavily on him. Leora remained silent for a long moment. Then she spoke, her voice deliberate. You made choices no human or alien should have to make. And you saved lives. I will not forget that. Kai's heart thumped in his chest. Praise from her. It was unexpected. He had braced himself for anger, for scorn, maybe even exile. Yet here she was, acknowledging what he had done. Somehow, that made him feel both relief and a strange tension. I should have expected nothing less, she continued. Humans are remarkable in ways I can never fully explain. You think with speed, act with courage, and yet sometimes with little regard for what is proper. Kai allowed himself a small grin. I'll take that as a compliment. She tilted her head, considering him.
Perhaps it is, she said slowly. But you must understand. Leaving me at the altar has consequences beyond what you imagine.
The palace has eyes, Kairen. Many are watching, and not all will forgive your choices. He nodded. I understand that. Her gaze shifted toward a doorway leading deeper into the palace. There is more you must see, secrets that even most veilers do not know. If you truly want to make amends, or at least understand the full weight of your actions, you will come with me. Kai followed her, heart pounding. Every step into the palace felt heavier than the last. This was no longer a place of ceremony or politics. It was alive, humming with intelligence he could feel but not see. Lights flickered as they passed corridors that seemed to rearrange themselves subtly, guiding them deeper. Finally, they arrived at a chamber unlike any Kai had imagined. Screens floated in the air, displaying galaxies, star systems, and fleets moving in patterns only a mind like Leora's could understand. This, she said, gesturing to the array, is where the palace monitors the Dominion and beyond. And this, she tapped a console that pulsed with faint blue light, is where even the smallest detail is recorded, from diplomacy to potential threats. Kai stared, awestruck. He had fought wars, commanded troops, and strategized for the survival of human colonies. But this level of intelligence and foresight was beyond anything he had ever seen. It's incredible, he murmured. Leora smiled faintly.
It is, and yet it is not infallible.
The palace watches, but it cannot act. That is where we come in. Kai leaned closer to the console, his mind already running through possibilities. You're saying I can help? Not help, she corrected. Guide, teach, and perhaps remind those who think us predictable that humans are never to be underestimated. He felt a spark of pride. HFY, humans being underestimated. That idea had always motivated him. Here, in the heart of an alien empire, it felt more real than ever. Humans might be young in the galactic scene, but they were clever, daring, and unafraid to take risks that others would not. Leora's voice drew him out of his thoughts.
I do not know if I should be angry at you, Kairin, or grateful.
Perhaps a mix of both, but one thing is clear. Humanity has value in ways the Dominion cannot always see. And you, of all humans, are the example. He swallowed, aware that her words were rare praise. I didn't expect that.
Expectations are chains, she said softly.
And sometimes breaking them is necessary. Kai realized then that the person standing before him was no mere political figurehead. She was a leader, a strategist, and someone who could see the truth in situations that others would never understand. And somehow, despite everything, there was a spark of something personal in her regard for him. They continued through the palace, moving into chambers that revealed more secrets, more layers of intelligence, and more possibilities for what lay ahead. Kai realized that leaving the altar had not ended their story. It had begun a far more complex one that involved not just diplomacy, but courage, ingenuity, and the delicate balance between human intuition and alien technology. As they reached the outer halls of the palace, Leora paused, looking at him with an unreadable expression. "You may have left the altar, Kai Ren," she said quietly, "but now you have returned, and the question is, will you rise to the challenges that await, or will you falter in ways you never imagined?"
Kai met her gaze, determination settling over him like armor. "I won't falter," he said.
Not now, not ever.
Leora's lips curved into a faint smile again, this one more genuine, tinged with respect. "We shall see," she said, and as the palace lights shimmered around them, Kai felt a renewed sense of purpose. The mission was over, yes, but the real journey was just beginning. Humanity had been underestimated, and he would prove that no one, alien or otherwise, could predict the courage, ingenuity, and audacity of a human being. And for the first time since he had left her at the altar, Kai felt ready. The palace doors closed behind them, and somewhere deep within the living walls, a silent observer hummed, recording every move.
Humanity had returned to the galactic stage, and the universe would notice.
Kai followed Leora through a labyrinth of corridors that seemed to pulse with life. The palace was unlike anything he had ever seen. Walls that shifted as if breathing, lights that guided them subtly, and floors that seemed to hum underfoot. Every step reminded him that leaving the altar was not just a personal choice. It had consequences far beyond what he had imagined. "This palace," Leora said, her voice soft but commanding, "was built to endure centuries. It records everything, learns from everything, and watches over every corner of the Dominion. Most Veilers see it as a home, but it is more than that. It is a living guardian." Kai's eyes widened as he looked at a hallway where the walls seemed to ripple like water. "It's alive?" he asked. "In a way humans rarely understand," Leora replied. "The palace itself is a network of intelligence. It remembers everything, and it can act, sometimes subtly, sometimes directly. But it cannot make decisions for us. That is where we come in." As they reached a large chamber, Kai saw dozens of floating holographic displays. Stars, planets, and fleets rotated slowly in three-dimensional space. The palace had been quietly monitoring activity across multiple star systems, tracking political movements, trade routes, and possible threats. Kai felt a surge of awe. On Earth, even the most advanced computers could not process so much data so quickly. And yet, here it was, a palace that could see everything, yet still relied on humans and Veilers to interpret it.
Leora gestured toward the displays. "The rogue faction you stopped was only the beginning," she explained.
They were a pawn, controlled by a deeper network. They wanted the Dominion weakened, distracted, and divided. Without your intervention, millions would have suffered. Kai frowned. "So, leaving the altar did more than I realized." "Yes," Leora said, her voice calm but serious. "Your choice to act outside ceremony saved lives, but it also revealed vulnerabilities. Some in the palace and outside it will test us now." Kai leaned closer to the holograms, scanning them rapidly. Patterns, fleet movements, planetary alliances. It was a lot for any human mind to process, but he was trained to notice details. "There are gaps here," he said, pointing to several star systems. "Someone is moving pieces where they shouldn't. That syndicate you mentioned, they've been careful, but not perfect." Leora's eyes gleamed faintly, impressed. "You notice patterns humans sometimes overlook. That is why your return matters. Your perspective is unusual for someone outside the Dominion." Kai felt a small surge of pride. Humanity often had a reputation for being reckless, unpredictable, or inexperienced. Yet here, in the center of an alien empire, his human instincts and intuition were seen as assets. HFY. It was more than a concept. It was real. They moved to a side chamber filled with archives older than Kai could imagine. Scrolls, crystals, and digital records were stacked neatly, each one containing histories, treaties, and secrets. Leora touched a crystal, and images flickered to life. A war from centuries ago, battles that humans could only dream of, strategies so intricate they bordered on art. These records show the true depth of the Dominion, she explained. We survive not just because of technology, but because of strategy, foresight, and alliances. Yet even here, the palace cannot see everything. There are gaps that only someone like you can help fill. Kai studied the records, noticing inconsistencies in the patterns of past attacks. Small details, easily overlooked by Valar analysts, jumped out at him. The timing of fleet movements, the sequence of communications, the placement of defenses. Someone has been testing the Dominion for years, he said.
This isn't sudden. They've been probing weaknesses slowly, waiting for the right moment.
Leora nodded.
And that moment may be coming. The Syndicate is patient.
They observe, adapt, and strike when the time is perfect. That is why we must act before they think we are vulnerable. They worked together for hours, Kai using his human logic and intuition, Leora using her deep knowledge of the palace and the Dominion. They traced patterns across star systems, mapped potential attack points, and devised strategies that combined human unpredictability with alien precision. The synergy between them was remarkable. Two minds from entirely different worlds, working in harmony. Kai paused for a moment, catching his breath. I didn't think I'd find purpose in returning here, he admitted. I expected blame, perhaps punishment. Instead, it feels like I finally have a role that matters.
Leora looked at him thoughtfully.
Your role always mattered, Kyren. The difference is that now you understand its weight. The Dominion sees humans as capable, but they underestimate the courage, creativity, and unpredictability that comes naturally to your species. Kai smiled faintly.
I suppose that's what you mean by HFY?
She nodded.
Exactly.
Humans often surprise us, not because you have advanced technology, sometimes you do, but because your minds can think in ways the most advanced systems cannot anticipate. That is your gift. And in this moment, that gift is vital. As night fell across the palace world, they continued analyzing data. Outside, stars shone brightly, each one a potential world, a potential ally, or a potential threat. Kai realized how small humans were in the galaxy, yet how influential a single human could be. One decision, one action, could change the course of millions of lives. Suddenly, a soft chime echoed through the chamber. A holographic image flickered to life, showing a fleet moving in unusual patterns near the outer systems of the Dominion. They're testing, Kai said immediately, recognizing the formation. They want to see how we respond. If we panic, they gain advantage. If we ignore it, they gain ground. Leora studied the display. This is subtle, she said. The palace can detect the movement, but it cannot predict intent. Only we can interpret it, and only we can act in time. Kai's mind raced. He considered options that the Valars might dismiss as reckless or bold. A sudden maneuver here or a diversion there, using unexpected resources humans had discovered during earlier missions. He could counter the test in a way no one else would predict. We can use their assumptions against them, he said.
They think they know our strategy.
They don't know humans think differently. We'll give them an answer they never expected.
Leora's eyes sparkled faintly, a rare expression of admiration.
You see possibilities that others miss.
This is why you are here, Kyren. Your return is no accident.
It is necessity. Together they began drafting a plan.
The palace AI offered suggestions, but Kai often ignored them, choosing instead to propose bold alternatives. Leora, at first skeptical, began to nod at his ideas. Every suggestion combined human intuition with alien knowledge. Every step strengthened the alliance between them, not just as leaders, but as partners in problem-solving. As hours passed, Kai realized how different this was from any battlefield he had faced. There were no explosions, no bloodshed, no immediate danger. The challenge was intellectual, strategic, and delicate. Every choice mattered. A wrong move could allow the syndicate to exploit weaknesses. A clever move could prevent conflict and save lives without a single strike. Finally, they paused, reviewing the plan. Kai felt a sense of satisfaction he hadn't known in years. It was strange. He had faced death countless times in his missions, yet this challenge, solving a puzzle that could save millions, felt more important than any battle.
Leora placed a hand on a console, activating a hologram that displayed the final plan.
"The palace will assist where it can," she said. "But the execution, that is in our hands. And yours, Kai Ren." He met her gaze, determination burning bright. "We won't fail," he said. "We have the advantage humans always have, thinking differently, seeing patterns others miss, and acting when others hesitate." She smiled faintly.
"Then let us see if your words hold true." As they left the chamber, moving toward the outer halls of the palace, Kai realized the weight of what they were about to do. The rogue faction had been only a test, the first move of a far larger game.
The syndicate was patient, intelligent, and ruthless in their subtlety. But with Leora at his side, and with human ingenuity guiding their decisions, Kai felt hope. Humanity had returned to the galactic stage, not as soldiers or diplomats alone, but as thinkers, strategists, and in that realization, Kai knew one truth. Humans might be underestimated but never defeated, not by aliens, not by politics, and not by destiny itself. The palace hummed around them, as if acknowledging their resolve. Somewhere deep within its walls, silent observers recorded every step, every plan, every choice. Kai understood that the universe was watching, and now humans would respond not with force, but with intelligence, courage, and the indomitable will to survive and thrive. And for the first time since leaving the altar, Kai felt a sense of purpose that went beyond duty. It was the beginning of something larger than himself, larger than any mission he had ever undertaken. Humanity's cleverness, daring, and unpredictability would be their greatest weapons, and the galaxy would have no choice but to notice. Kai stood in the palace observation chamber, eyes fixed on the holographic map of the outer systems. The soft hum of alien machinery filled the room, punctuated by occasional pings as the palace AI processed streams of data. Despite all the technology, Kai understood that the real challenge would not come from systems or algorithms. It would come from thinking differently than anyone expected. Leora entered the chamber, her movements precise and graceful. "The Syndicate is testing our defenses," she said, her eyes scanning the map. "They are subtle, using small fleets, false communications, and diversions. Most Veilers would detect the obvious threat, but the smaller signals, those are easy to miss." Kai nodded. "That's where humans excel. We notice patterns others ignore, and we act unpredictably. Let's see if we can turn their tests into opportunities." They worked side by side, combining alien technology with human intuition. Leora showed him how to manipulate the palace's holographic interface, how to simulate fleet movements, and how to create defensive strategies in real time. Kai, in turn, suggested maneuvers the palace AI had never calculated, feints, decoys, and diversions that leveraged human unpredictability. "Interesting," Leora said, tilting her head. "You approach the problem from an angle I would never have considered. It could work, if they don't anticipate it." Kai smiled faintly.
"That's the point. They never do."
Hours passed as they refined their strategy. The palace AI highlighted every potential weakness in the Dominion's defenses. Yet, every time a flaw appeared, Kai found a human-inspired solution. He suggested using the palace's surveillance drones to create false fleet signals, redirecting enemy attention. He proposed subtle manipulation of interstellar communications to feed the Syndicate misinformation.
Leora's initial skepticism slowly gave way to trust in his judgment.
By the time the twin suns of the planet began to set, the plan was nearly complete. Kai leaned back, exhausted but satisfied. "We've done all we can for now," he said. "The rest depends on execution and timing." "That's where humans shine. We see opportunities in real time." Biora nodded, agreed. "But we must also consider the palace itself. It is intelligent, yes, but it cannot act without guidance. That guidance must come from us, from your perspective and mine." Kai realized the palace was more than a building. It was an ally, a partner in strategy. Its advanced sensors, communications, and computation could do amazing things, but it needed the creativity and decisiveness of humans to make full use of its abilities. He felt a surge of pride. HFY was real here. Human minds could match, even enhance, alien technology. Their concentration was interrupted by a soft chime. The palace AI projected a live feed showing a small Valar council gathering. Subtle movements suggested dissent. Certain council members were skeptical of Kai's influence and human methods. They whispered to one another, pointing toward the observation chamber. The Syndicate may have anticipated the Dominion's reliance on tradition and expected resistance to innovation. Kai's eyes narrowed.
"Internal politics," he muttered. "The Syndicate always counts on hesitation and distrust."
"We need to secure the Council's cooperation, or at least prevent interference."
Leora looked thoughtful. "You are right."
The Council is cautious, but they are not incapable of understanding logic. Perhaps a demonstration is in order. Kai nodded. "Let's show them results, not just theories. Humans act on proof." Over the next hours, they set up simulations to demonstrate the effectiveness of their strategies. Holograms displayed enemy movements countered by Kai's feints and decoys. Scenarios that had once seemed impossible were now unfolding successfully in simulation, showing the Council that bold, human-inspired strategies could work without risking lives. The Council members leaned forward, astonished. They whispered among themselves, exchanging glances that conveyed both surprise and admiration. Leora watched them carefully, allowing Kai's results to speak for themselves. The human agent who had once left a bride at the altar was now proving the ingenuity of his species. As the simulations concluded, Kai took a deep breath. "This is what humans do. We see challenges as opportunities. We adapt, we improvise, and we act when others hesitate." One of the counselors, a stern Valar with deep violet eyes, finally spoke. "Your methods are unconventional, but the results are undeniable."
Perhaps we have underestimated humans.
Leora's expression softened. "You have not. That is why Kai Ren stands here, guiding the Dominion in a moment of subtle crisis. Your traditions and our innovations must work together." Kai felt a quiet satisfaction. Humans were often underestimated in the galaxy, dismissed as reckless or inexperienced. Yet here, in the heart of an alien empire, his ingenuity and adaptability were recognized. HFY was not just a concept, it was reality. Their focus returned to the Syndicate's movements. Small fleets were testing outer defenses, probing communications, and attempting to intercept trade routes. Every signal was subtle, designed to be ignored or misinterpreted. Kai spotted patterns that others had missed. The placement of fleets suggested they were guiding the Dominion into specific responses that the Syndicate would later exploit.
"Here," he said, pointing to the hologram.
"They expect us to react predictably, but if we act unpredictably, we can control their perception." Leora's eyes sparkled faintly. "Show me." Kai outlined a plan that used both human creativity and palace technology. Surveillance drones would project decoy signals, holographic projections would simulate fleet movements, and communications would be subtly altered to suggest responses the Dominion was not actually preparing. The Syndicate would interpret this as weakness or misalignment, but in reality the Dominion would be perfectly coordinated.
Leora nodded approvingly. This plan is bold, but it could succeed, and it will test the Syndicate's assumptions. Hours turned into a long night as they fine-tuned the details. Kai suggested minor adjustments, small actions that seemed insignificant to alien observers but could shift the balance of perception dramatically. Leora implemented these changes, sometimes questioning, sometimes trusting, but always working alongside him. By dawn, the palace was ready. The observation chamber hummed with quiet energy, the holograms of fleets and star systems pulsing gently. The Syndicate's test had begun. Small signals appeared on the holographic map, fleets moving subtly toward the outer systems. The palace AI tracked them, analyzing patterns, but it was Kai's human insight that interpreted their intent.
Now, Kai said, we act. Leora's hand hovered over the control console.
Execute the plan, she said. Holographic signals shifted, decoys moved into position, and communications were subtly altered. The Syndicate, observing from afar, would interpret these actions as reactive and predictable, but in reality, the Dominion was fully in control. The Palace AI adapted to Kai's improvisations, making the decoy signals more convincing, projecting false fleet formations into space that only enemy sensors could see. Hours passed, and the results became clear. The Syndicate's probes were countered, misled, and contained. Small fleets moved in ways that suggested the Dominion was confused, but in fact, every move was calculated. Kai watched the holograms with satisfaction. Human intuition had guided alien technology, and together they had outsmarted an unseen enemy. Leora leaned toward him. "You were right," she said quietly. "Humans think differently, and that difference can change outcomes. The Syndicate underestimated you and, by extension, underestimated humanity." Kai felt a surge of pride.
"We've shown them what humans can do," he said. "Not by brute force, but by thinking, adapting, and acting."
The council convened to review the outcome. Their skepticism was replaced by cautious respect. Kai's human-inspired strategies had not only protected the Dominion, but had also demonstrated a level of ingenuity that impressed even the most conservative members. Leora stood by his side, subtly guiding the council toward understanding the value of human insight. As the meeting concluded, Kai and Leora walked through the palace corridors. The twin suns rose fully, casting long shadows across the shimmering walls. Kai realized that leaving the altar had been only the beginning. Humanity's place in the galaxy was not just as soldiers or diplomats, it was as thinkers, innovators, and problem solvers.
HFY was not just about courage, it was about creativity, adaptability, and the ability to turn challenges into victories.
"Tomorrow," Leora said softly, "we will face the Syndicate directly. Their leader may act personally, testing us in ways we cannot yet see. But today we proved something important. Humanity can be more than expected. And you, Chiron, are a symbol of that." Kai met her gaze, determination steady in his chest. "Then tomorrow, we show them exactly why humans should never be underestimated." As they looked out over the city from the palace's highest balcony, Kai felt the quiet thrill of purpose. The mission had been more than a battle. It was a demonstration of ingenuity, strategy, and partnership across worlds. And the universe, he knew, was watching. Somewhere deep in the palace, silent observers recorded every decision, every maneuver, every innovative choice. And the galaxy would soon realize that humanity had returned, not just to survive, but to shape events in ways that even the most advanced civilizations could not predict. Kai clenched his fists lightly. The Syndicate would come. They would test them, but with human intuition, courage, and ingenuity guiding the palace, Kai knew one truth: they would not fail. Humanity had arrived at the center of the Dominion's destiny, and no one would forget it.
Kai stood at the palace observation deck, overlooking the vast city that glimmered under the twin suns. The stars beyond were bright, distant, and silent, but Kai knew the universe was far from still. Somewhere in the outer systems, the Syndicate's leader was moving forces, testing the Dominion one final time. Every fleet, every signal, every calculation mattered now. The mission was no longer a simulation or a subtle test. It was real, and the stakes had never been higher. Leora appeared at his side, her presence calm and commanding. "The Syndicate will not hold back," she said softly. "Their leader has observed your human-inspired strategies, and now he will act personally. He will test us in ways we cannot yet predict." Kai nodded, his mind already racing through possibilities. "Then we have to think like humans, and like Veilers, anticipate their expectations, then do something they would never expect." Leora's lips curved into a faint smile. "That is why you are here, Kai Ren. Not as a soldier, not as a diplomat, but as an unpredictable variable. And sometimes that is exactly what wins wars." The palace hummed around them, alive and attentive. The walls shimmered subtly, tracking every movement, every pulse, every decision. It was as if the building itself understood the stakes and prepared to aid them. Kai felt a quiet thrill. Humanity, combined with the palace's alien intelligence, could accomplish feats that neither species could do alone. HFY had never felt more real. Across the holographic displays, the Syndicate's fleets began moving in ways that suggested confidence. They believed the Dominion was unprepared, that the decoys and simulations had caused hesitation. But Kai had anticipated this. Using a combination of palace surveillance drones, holographic projections, and subtle manipulations of communications, he had set up an intricate trap. Every fleet, every signal, every expectation was under their control. "We need precision," Kai said, pointing to the map.
Every movement must look reactive, but it's actually proactive. We feed the Syndicate the illusion of opportunity, and they will walk straight into our plan."
Leora nodded. "And human unpredictability is key. They think they understand strategy, but you will show them something they never expected." Kai smiled faintly. "Then let's begin." For hours they monitored every movement. The Syndicate tested minor outposts, sent scouting ships to probe defenses, and intercepted communications to gather information. Each time, Kai anticipated their actions and adjusted their responses. Holographic fleets moved in patterns designed to mislead. Decoy signals misdirected enemy intelligence, and subtle delays made it seem as though the Dominion was disorganized. Yet every adjustment was carefully calculated. The Palace AI calculated probabilities, but it was Kai's human insight that interpreted subtle anomalies. A small fleet that seemed insignificant could, if mishandled, expose the Dominion's defenses. Kai noticed patterns the AI could not: slight hesitations in communications, unusual formations in the enemy fleet, subtle changes in energy signatures. "This is it," he said to Leora. "They're walking straight into our plan. The leader will act soon." Leora's eyes gleamed.
"And we will be ready. We must remain calm, precise, and unpredictable."
The first direct communication from the Syndicate appeared as a holographic projection, flickering into existence above the main console. The leader was humanoid, tall and imposing, with eyes that glowed faintly with intelligence and confidence. His voice was calm, almost measured as he spoke. "Kai Ren, Princess Leora, I have watched your maneuvers. Bold, clever, but ultimately futile. The Dominion will fall, and humanity will be irrelevant." Kai leaned forward, meeting the leader's gaze.
"You underestimate humans. You always do."
"And that is why you will fail." The leader's expression remained unchanged. Bold words, yet words are worthless without results.
"Show me, then, how you intend to prevent my plans."
Kai's fingers moved across the console, activating the palace's holographic projections. Fleets that had seemed scattered now formed intricate patterns. Decoy signals lit up in space, drawing the syndicate's attention to false targets. Communications that had been intercepted appeared to indicate hesitation, mismanagement, and confusion. The enemy interpreted every action exactly as Kai intended. Leora watched closely, adjusting palace systems to enhance the illusions.
Your human creativity is remarkable, she said softly. I admit I doubted whether you could handle this without conventional methods.
Yet you are proving humans are unpredictable in ways even the most advanced systems cannot predict. Kai felt a surge of pride. HFY was not about violence or raw power. It was about ingenuity, cleverness, and the ability to turn perception into advantage. He watched the Syndicate's forces respond exactly as he had planned, each movement confirming the effectiveness of their strategy. The enemy leader's expression flickered, just slightly. For the first time, Kai saw uncertainty. Their careful calculations had been manipulated. Every action they took was guided by human ingenuity and palace technology, leading them directly into a controlled outcome.
See,
Kai said, his voice calm but firm. Humans act differently. We see possibilities where others see obstacles, and we act when others hesitate. The leader hesitated, considering the situation. He realized that his subtle manipulations had been anticipated, his probes misinterpreted, his minor attacks turned into illusions that strengthened the Dominion's position. Every move he had expected to gain information or advantage now reinforced Kai's plan.
You are clever, the leader admitted finally. Perhaps more clever than I anticipated.
But cleverness alone cannot win against power.
Kai smiled faintly. Power without insight is useless.
You relied on assumptions, but humans don't follow assumptions. They adapt. We use what we have, and we turn the unexpected into opportunity. Leora stepped forward, her voice calm but commanding. The Dominion is not just technology, nor tradition, nor politics. It is strategy, insight, and innovation combined. And in this moment, humanity demonstrates that it is an indispensable part of that combination. The enemy leader studied them for a long moment, then spoke with a hint of reluctant respect. You may have won this engagement, but the galaxy is vast, and humans are only beginning to prove themselves. Kai's eyes narrowed. Then we will continue to surprise you. Humanity is not irrelevant.
And we never give up?
As the holographic displays shifted, the enemy fleets withdrew subtly, their leader's plan foiled without a single destructive strike. The Dominion's defenses remained intact, strengthened by the human-guided strategy. Kai felt a quiet satisfaction. The palace had not needed force. It had needed creativity, collaboration, and courage. Leora turned to him, her expression softening. You have proven more than bravery or skill. You have shown that humans bring a unique perspective to the galaxy, one that even advanced civilizations must respect. Kai exhaled, feeling the weight of the past weeks lift slightly. The rogue faction, the hidden syndicate, the council's skepticism, it had all led to this moment. And in the end, humanity had not just survived, it had outsmarted a far-reaching threat.
You were right about unpredictability, Leora said, her eyes reflecting the rising suns outside. It is not reckless, it is powerful.
And in the right hands, it can save lives and preserve entire civilizations. Kai looked out over the city below, the twin suns casting golden light across the palace. He thought of the altar he had left, of the choice that had seemed impossible, and of the journey that had begun with that decision. He realized that leaving had not been a failure. It had been the first step in proving the value of human insight in a galaxy that often underestimated them.
Then humanity has a place here, Kai said quietly, almost to himself. Not as observers.
not as pawns, but as partners, as equals, and as innovators. Leora's hand brushed lightly against the console, activating a soft display of the Dominion's systems, now perfectly coordinated and secure. Indeed, she said. And you, Kyren, have shown that humans are not only brave but necessary. HFY is not a concept here. It is a reality. Kai felt a quiet smile form. He had returned to the palace, expecting confrontation, anger, or disappointment. Instead, he found partnership, respect, and a new understanding of humanity's place in the galaxy. The mission, the altar, the choices, they had all led to this moment, and he would not forget it. As the palace lights shimmered and the city below sparkled, Kai and Leora stood side by side. The Syndicate was defeated, the Dominion secured, and humanity's ingenuity had been recognized across worlds. But more importantly, Kai knew that this was only the beginning. Humanity would continue to surprise, to innovate, and to rise in ways the galaxy could not predict. And in that thought, Kai felt a quiet thrill. The universe was vast, filled with challenges and possibilities. But humanity had arrived. Not merely to survive, but to thrive, to innovate, and to prove that courage, creativity, and insight could shape destinies. Leora looked at him, her voice gentle but firm.
The mission is complete. The Dominion is secure. And yet the galaxy will continue to challenge us.
Are you ready for what comes next? Kai straightened, determination steady in his chest. Always. Humanity never stops, and neither do I. The palace hummed softly around them, as if acknowledging the victory, the strategy, and the human ingenuity that had guided it. Somewhere deep in its living walls, silent observers recorded every step, every choice, every clever maneuver, and the galaxy would notice. Humanity had arrived, not as spectators, not as pawns, but as a force to be reckoned with, unpredictable, clever, and unstoppable. Kai and Leora stood together, side by side, watching the suns rise fully over the palace. The mission was over, the threat neutralized, and yet a new chapter awaited. The universe was vast, and humanity had found its place among the stars, not as a footnote, but as a defining presence. And for the first time, Kai understood that leaving the altar had not been a mistake. It had been destiny.